This is for Algebra 2, Lesson 9, and we are learning how to square a binomial, and then we will be cubing a binomial and see what happens. Now, a lot of people will make the mistake of saying this is a squared plus b squared, but it's so much more than that. Remember, when you square something, that means you multiply it times itself twice. So if you do that, you're going to end up with actually a trinomial, because look, a times a is a squared. When you multiply your outer terms, right here you get an AB, and here you get another AB. So AB plus AB is 2AB plus, last term's there, b squared. So notice when I square this binomial, I get a trinomial. So this basically can be our equation anytime we square something. So for example, this is from 9a, number 3. Now you can always do this the old-fashioned way. You can write 3x plus 4, times 3x plus 4. My phone did something weird right there. Okay, and you can FOIL this out and get the answer. But what I want you to try to do is use this equation without doing that. So you won't even have to show any work. And look what it does. This is your a right here, and this is your b. It says take your first term, that's this one, and square it. So think, what is 3x times 3x? That's what it means to square it. It's 9x squared, okay? Then the easiest thing here is to multiply your a and your b together. This is your a and this is your b. So if I multiply these two together, I get 12x, and then it says to double it. So 12x and 12x is 24x. And then last but not least, it says take your last term and square it. So I'm going to take my 4 and square it, which is 16. So that would be my answer right there. Now, yes, you're going to get the same answer if you do it this way, but we're practicing using the equation right here for where you square a binomial. Okay, so try this one real quick. Remember, the equation says take the first term and you square it. So 3x times 3x is 9x squared. To get your middle term, you multiply these two together. Well, negative 2 times 3x is negative 6x. And if you double that, that's a negative 12x. And the last term will always be positive, always, 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 because you're going to take this guy and square it. So whether he's positive or negative, when you square it, it will end up being positive. And 2 times 2 is 4. So that would be the answer there. So squaring things aren't too bad. We've been doing it before. We'll try one more here. I should have probably done this one first, but this is from 9a, number 2, I think. Remember, it says take the first term and square it, so it would be a squared. Multiply these two together, which would be negative 3a, but then double it, so it'd be negative 6a. And a negative 3 times a negative 3 is a positive 9. So that right there would be how you square a binomial. And again, you can say the same thing as a minus 3 times a minus 3. I have no problem with you doing that long-handed. Okay, and you're going to get the same answer. All right, but what happens all of a sudden when you cube something? Different formula for this one. This one, remember, is the same thing as if you take a plus b squared times a plus b. So you can do it that way. You can square it, get that answer, and then multiply by a plus b. And we're going to do it that long way here first. Remember, this is going to be a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. I just found that. Now I have to multiply it times a plus b. So if I do that, I'm going to get a to the third. Let me move my paper here just a little bit. Then I've got a squared times b, which is a squared b. Now I'm going to move on to this. 2ab times a is 2a squared b. 2ab times b, which is, I'm going to move that down here, 2ab squared. And then I'll move here. That, when I multiply these two together, is ab squared. And last but not least, b squared times b. So if you end up doing this the long way, this is how you would have to do it. But hopefully we're going to come up with this lovely equation where we don't have to do this the long way. Notice these are like terms, a squared b. So my final answer here would be, and I'm going to write that over here once I get it, a to the third. Notice these are like terms, so there's 2 here and another one here. So that's going to give me 3a squared b. Then I've got 2ab squared plus 1ab squared. That's going to give me 3 AB squared. And then last but not least, we had that b to the third there on the end. Okay, we are going to use this equation over and over again. So I suggest you write that at the top of your paper because this will be the equation we use anytime we cube something. Okay, we're going to come back to this. We don't want to have to do it this long way to get the answer. Realize you could find x plus 5 times x plus 5, do it the long way, get that answer, and then multiply it times x plus 5 again. That will work, and you're welcome to do it that way. But I really, really would like you to try to use this equation right here to figure out what this is when you cube it. And realize this first term is your A, and the second term is your B. So look what this says. This says right here, take your first term and cube it. So I'm going to take x and I'm going to cube it. Well, that's easy enough. Then it says take 3 times your first term and square it. Well, if I square this, that's going to be x squared. And then it says times your b, which in this case it's 5. Then it says take 3 times your first term. Well, there's 3. My first term is x. Take your second term and square it. Well, 5 times 5 is 25. And last but not least, it says take your last term and cube it. Well, 5 to the third is 125. 5 times 5 times 5. So my answer is 3 times 5 is 15. So I have 15x squared. 3 times 25 is 75. And there's still an x plus 125. So that would be my answer when I cube it. And let me just say here, notice your exponents are x to the third, x to the second, x to the first, x to the 0. Because remember, x to the 0 is 1, so it's not even there. All right, let's try another one. This is from 9b, number 10. All right, remember this is my A, this is my B here. So when I cube it, my equation, and I can see it right here on the corner of my screen, says take your first term and cube it. So I want you to think about this. What's 2x cubed? Well, 2 cubed is 8, and x cubed is simple enough. Then it says take 3, take your first term and square it. So you're kind of going downhill. Remember this term we cubed it, now we're going to square it. Well, 2x times 2x is 4x squared times, look what it says to do, your second term. Well, it's just a boring 1. Okay, now it says take 3 times my first term. So I'm going to take 3 times my first term, which is 2x, times my second term squared. Well, 1 times 1 is just 1. And last but not least, it says take the last term and cube it. Well, 1 times 1 times 1 is just 1. So that's easy enough. So look what we end up with. 3 times 4 is 12, times 1 is still 12. 3 times 2 is 6, so I have a 6x plus 1. And there's my answer right there. Okay, let's try one that's a little trickier real quick. I wrote this one down, and I don't know that I'm going to take time to do this one, but just realize when you do this that b is -4. It's not just 4, but it's a -4. So here my a would be x. My b is a -4. So it's still going to be the same way. But let's try this one. These numbers are a little bigger. Again, I'm going to use this equation for when I cube something. So write this down until you accidentally memorize it. But it says take the first term and cube it. So I'm going to take 4f times 4f times 4f. Okay, and you can use your calculator, but basically you're telling what is 4 to the third? Well, 4 to the third is 64. And then f to the third, that's easy enough. Then, my paper's moving on me. It says to take 3 times, take your first term and square it. Well, think, what's 4 times 4? Well, that's 16. And f times f is f squared times my second term. Then we're going to do 3 again. And it says, take your first term times your second term squared. And you can see where I'm getting this. There's your first term times your second term squared. My second term is 2. Well, 2 times 2 is 4. And last but not least, it says take your last term and cube it, which would be 8. So if I multiply this all together, I'm going to get 64 f to the third. And I don't know if I can write this down here real little while looking through my phone and my paper not moving. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 16, you can multiply in any order you want, but that should be 96f squared. And then 3 times 4 is 12. 12 times 4 is what, 48? So that'd be a 48f, and then plus 8. And then that's it. So on this one, just be really careful. Like when you square it, it'll be positive, but if you cube it, it's still going to be negative. Try it a little bit, see if you can get it. We can look at it together in class.